Hey good people, welcome back to Beauty and the Frizz. My name is Kara, and whether you're new or returning, thank you so much for stopping by and hanging out with me. I have a small eyeshadow palette declutter. Yeah. Small eyeshadow palette declutter for us today. I'm still not sure about a couple, so I'm gonna need your help. If that sounds good to you, keep watching this video. Let me know what you think. And if makeup is your therapy and your love, if it makes you happy and you wanna hang out with those who feel the same way, definitely consider joining the community because I'd love to have you back. All right, let's get started. So how are you? I'm excited. I am feeling, I don't know, renewed. I felt like, I don't know, for a minute there, and I still kind of feel like this a little bit. I'm like, where is Beauty and the Frizz going? I do not know, but I have just ideas and I'm just gonna be putting it all out there. So yesterday I did a makeup updates video where I talked about what came in January, what went out, since I'm on one in and one out this year. And I also talked about how I paid for my makeup because I am really all analytical now, all in my feelings, and I am wanting to continue on with decluttering. So that's what we are going to do. And as I get, a nice little stack of palettes, we're just gonna go through them. So let me know how you're doing in the comment section or the chat, whichever you prefer, and let's get this declutter going. I'm not gonna hold you too long, I don't think. I might, I don't know. So we're gonna start with a palette from a brand that I don't think I ever saw myself decluttering from. And that is my favorite brand, my girl, Natasha Denona. There is a palette in my collection of hers that I just have no desire to wear. I purchased the palette out of loyalty and I did not need to do that. And that is the Mini Trio Chrome palette.
I never mind. I changed my mind.
You did?
Yes.
Well, what you gonna have?
Oh, yours.
Okay. I think I did touch this palette.
What's going on?
I might have just watched it.
Yes.
I'm not sad, I'm just playing.
Oh my God. I am not a fan of blue eyeshadow. If I like the tone, I mean, it is very rare, but there are very specific tones of blues that I like, and they're usually more muted, more cool toned, more gray leaning. If you understand my history with the Natasha Denona Trio Chrome palette, the OG, you will know that I absolutely love that palette, but I absolutely don't understand to this day how this palette is an extension of the Trio Chrome palette. But it was one of those situations where I bought it because it was Tasha, and that was foolish because I've messed over it as far as touching it, and I shouldn't have. I really don't have the desire to wear this, and I've had this palette since it came out. The desire has not grown, it will not grow. So I am going to be rehoming the Trio Chrome Mini. It's gotta go. The other disclaimer that I would like to give with this video is that all of my makeup is good, all of it. Even brands who have reformulated, it wasn't like the formula was complete trash. So when I declutter things, it's not because it's not good. It's because I'm not wearing it and there's no capacity for me to wear it because of the size of my collection. And I don't want to just hold on to things where someone else could be enjoying it and using it. So this next palette was gifted, and this is from Mesa Beauty. It is a beautiful palette, and it's called the Swarthy palette. I know my friend Jamie has a tutorial with this palette, and it is beautiful. This one is untouched. And one of the things that I don't like to do, as I was saying, is mess over makeup products, especially if I can donate them or I have a friend that wants the palette. This one I could see Ariel really using. She put her little sticky notes on a whole bunch of palettes. And I was like, you don't even wear eyeshadow. But I can see her using this one. It is beautiful, but she is going to be leaving my collection. So that will be 51, Natasha Denona, and 52 will be this swarthy palette. I do not know how many eyeshadow palettes I currently own, but the last time I counted them, I want to say it was 385. And then that was after the last declutter, which was fake, because I ended up keeping a lot of those palettes and they ended up just sitting. So who knows, but we'll have to come up with a grand total. I would say maybe halfway through the year, because I think that's when I'll be done decluttering. I'm going to share some palettes from an, oh, that wasn't good. You know, the setup is a struggle, y'all. Like, seriously. I'm going to be sharing some palettes from Unearthly Cosmetics, back when they were formerly Alien Cosmetics, and you're going to see some palettes. There's one I kind of want to hold on for nostalgia, even though I don't plan on using it anymore, but it was my very first palette from them, so I'll show you that. But the first one I'm going to show you is the Dead of Night palette, and this is when they were in their hard pressed shimmer era. And although the shimmers perform fine, when I put on my makeup, it's the experience that matters. And because I don't have a whole lot of time, I want the whole experience to be enjoyable, easy, not fussy. And it's just something I'm being picky about. But I think it's important because I also just haven't used this palette in quite some time. It is a very beautiful color story, but it is not my color story. It's very blue, purple, heavy. And I did do beautiful looks, but this is not a palette that I'm typically going for. And so I think someone else that loves this color story would really get a lot of use out of it. Again, the formula is not bad. The hard pressed shimmers, the shimmers are not bad, even though they're pressed. They're just not my preference, especially compared to how they have upgraded their shimmers, where they have found just the sweet spot. If I'm going to grab a palette and if I want to have a blue purple heavy story, I might go for the So Jelly one or something like that with the updated formula. So I am gonna let Dead of Night go. So that would be 53. This is one of the holiday palettes that they came out with, and this was the first palette that I purchased from Unearthly Cosmetics. I liked this palette because at the time I was always on a quest for something that looked like Muerte from Melt Cosmetics, and this was like the closest thing that I had ever seen that was available. From then on, I loved Unearthly Cosmetics. I think this palette has served its purpose in my collection. I think what I love about the palettes are the packaging, but I'm not going to be using this palette. I am wondering if I should keep it because it is my first palette from the brand, and that's what I think I'm going to do. I did the same thing with Odin's Eye and the Norns palette. That's another palette that they've reformulated. I don't know. I don't see myself going back and using this one, but I am going to hold on to it. The next palette from Unearthly Cosmetics, this is another one where I need your help because I can't decide on this yet. So this is still going to be in the maybe pile. And this is the All I Ever Wanted palette. And I remember when this palette was teased, and it's like, it is a 20 pan all shimmer palette. Things like this overwhelm me now, but at the time I was so excited to have this palette. I want to say there was nothing else out that was like this. This was unprecedented. I was very happy to own it. I think this palette might have been in the $80 range back in 2020. Now I think this is a standard shimmer formula. They've played around with their formulas, as I was saying. But this is that formula that you're going to see this formula in a lot of the smaller indie brands. Not all of them, but a good amount of them. They're not like homemade shimmers. And I'm not knocking it because of that. I'm just saying you probably have these shades somewhere in your collection. This is the reason why I was like, I don't need any shimmer palettes, because I have my All I Ever Wanted palette, and I'm having trouble deciding on this one. So I would love to hear from you what you think about it. I'm gonna put it in the maybe pile. I'm just not sure the next time I'm gonna wear this. I quite prefer smaller palettes now. I did just receive the light scatters from Cleona, and that's like a 9-pan, something just really easy, and I don't have to put in too much thought, whereas 20 pans can be a bit overwhelming. So let me know what you think about those two from Unearthly, and I do have some more from Unearthly as well. I just have everything in a stack, so let me grab the next stack. All right, let's keep going with Unearthly, and I'll be honest, like this one I remember decluttering in my fake declutter video, and I still have it. And this is the original Fairy Frolic. They have updated the packaging as well as the formula. I just don't see myself coming to use this palette, even though it is gorgeous. I'm gonna go get, I don't know, maybe Fall Magic, the remastered one. Not the same color story, but there's some similar colors in here. That's the one I'm gonna go for. So at this point, I feel like, you know, Unearthly, they've made so many changes that I'm just probably not gonna reach for it. Again, this is one of my early palettes from them. So I love showing it and it's nice to reference, but I don't know if I need a library of reference palettes, and that's what I feel like I have. And I'm only gonna be referencing them in videos such as this one. I'm just not sure how worth it is to keep them around. I'm not going to be comparing formulas. We already know the formula has been upgraded, so I'm just going to be showing it, and I don't know if that makes sense for me. This palette was called Serendipity, and then they changed it to Poison Apple, and there's the packaging. And a lot of this stuff I just want to keep for the packaging, but I'm trying not to do that. So I did put Fairy Frolic in the declutter pile. I think I should put this one in there too. It's been years and years since I've used these palettes. And I don't care, like if it's beyond the expiration date, that's fine. But when I'm not even thinking of it, unless I see it and I'm like, oh, you know, that just lets me know that, you know, it may just be time. And these palettes, those two, I don't think I would try to get anything for them or give them to anyone, just because I've had them since sometime in 2020 and we're going on 2025. Hey y'all, I'm laughing and talking about it's going on 2025, but it is 2025. So it's not something I want to sell or just or donate, because it's just older. I would, if my sister wanted it or something like that. I did make a decision about this palette though. This was in my maybe last time. This is the Resurgence palette. It is the collab with Heather Austin. I did like the face palette from there, but had a hard time with this color story, and I'm still having a hard time with the color story. I'm just gonna be honest with myself to say that I would not reach for this palette. Now, I do love Heather Austin, and my palette from her is the one that she did with Adept. So when I see that one, I'm like, yes, that's the one I'm gonna go for. So I am gonna rehome this one because the color story may really work for someone else, and that's totally fine. So we're at 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56. It looks like we're at 56. Next, I have the Chocolate Martini palette from Glamlite, and this was gifted by one of my subs. I've just had it for a long time, and I have built up my neutral palette collection. I just have some faves that I really love. It would be an effort for me to be like, oh, let me pull this one out. So this is one I might see if Ariel wants, because it looks like these are some colors that her fantasy self would wear, because I don't know what eyeshadow she's wearing. But I am gonna let this one go. It's not really a standout in my collection at this point. This next palette is one that I bought from ColourPop, and I bought this towards the end of last year. I was thinking I wanted to kind of get into drugstore makeup and did this big drugstore haul. I realized that wasn't the way for me. I'm not in a box as far as the type of makeup that I like to buy. I like indie, I like mainstream, I like luxury, I like drugstore, I like it all. And what I realized is that drugstore makeup is great, so I really didn't need to do that big haul. But this palette is called So Elemental. It's beautiful, but it's a cool tone blue palette. These are my kind of blues, but I still don't really go for blue. But if I were, it would be these. This is a gorgeous palette. I haven't touched it, and I don't think I will. So I'm going to rehome this one. It is in perfect condition and it is really cute. But I realized that I have some of my favorite cool tone blues in the Nomad Ghost Town palette, and probably a couple others. And while we're talking about ColourPop, I have had this palette for so long and have not touched it, but this Baroque palette, there's something every time I want to get rid of it that says don't do it. I think that this palette is very unique. Even though this one has some blues in it, you can see that it's more than that. I mean, you have this plum shade, there's like a deep blue gray here, and then this looks like a duochrome. I mean, I've never swatched this palette. I don't think I've ever seen a review on it, but I ended up purchasing it at some point, have not used it. I'm gonna hold on to this one. There's something a little Natasha Denona Xenon-esque about this one, or at least as a partner palette. It's not, there's nothing about it that reminds me of Xenon. I don't know why I said that. I just think they would go well together. It doesn't remind me of it at all. I'm gonna keep that. Back to Unearthly Cosmetics. This is the Laura palette. Another really nice palette. Now I will say that like these shimmers are the same shimmers that are in or All I Ever Wanted palette. I think Basilisk and Sphinx, I want to say these two are in All I Ever Wanted. So the shimmer formula is the same and the actual shade is the same. I'm looking at the mattes and trying to create the color story because I usually start my eyeshadow looks with mattes, and I'm having a hard time because shades that I could use for transitions, I mean, these, mostly this one, is not going with this. Like when I think about how I put my eyeshadow looks together, these palettes were a hit for me when I was doing like wearing a look that had 9 colors, you know, and trying to fit every shade on, and the more colorful the better. I have been out of that place for a long time, so I don't see it coming back around. I mean, I'll never say never, but I remember the looks that I was doing with these palettes, and they're just not my aesthetic anymore. I like palettes that have a little more cohesion to them. These from Unearthly just don't. And I'm talking about the Serendipity, the Fairy Frolic. So I'm gonna put that over here. This one right here from Huda Beauty was in my maybe pile, and I've decided to not keep this one because I have so many palettes now at this point. I just got the NARS Afterglow palette. It's got some similar shades. Natasha Denona Retro. Even some of the Huda Beauty palettes that I have that are newer than this have very similar shades. If you notice, I did change some shades in here. Actually, no, I think I only changed one, which was this one, because this used to be like a concealer or eye primer. I'm gonna let this one go. I have lots of things that can dupe this mauve type of moment, and I think it's time. 2 more from ColourPop. This is the Mandalorian palette, and I actually wore this palette at the end of last year. There's nothing, every time I look at this palette, I'm like, why would you get rid of this? There's really nothing wrong with the palette at all. This got some really cool kind of taupey shades, but unless you're the child, you probably aren't staying in this collection. I think I could probably rehome this one, possibly, or donate it. It's just okay, and it's not a standout. I just think that when it comes to the taupey shades, I'm gonna go for so many other things besides the Mandalorian palette from ColourPop. The other palette that I think I'm gonna go ahead and let go is the Hocus Pocus Gather Round Sisters palette. And even though this isn't a Halloween color story, in my opinion, I just have a hard time using Halloween palettes outside of Halloween. This is definitely fall vibes, and I'm certain it's a great palette. I just think that I should let it go. I think I may have worn this one time when I'm looking at it. It's time. 2 more palettes left for this declutter. Oh, I kept y'all for like 25 minutes already. Now this is the Nomad Canadian Rockies palette. My sister claimed this one. She put her little sticky note on this, and I'm like, Ariel, ma'am, even my audience knows that you're not wearing these colors. But I'm gonna declutter this palette. I'm not gonna wear this palette at all. I did try on the other two, but this one, it doesn't really call to me. So I am going to rehome that one. And lastly, I would love to know your thoughts. This is probably gonna go in the maybes because I wanna hear your thoughts. This is from Mesa Beauty, and it's one of the Alice in Wonderland palettes. I'm more so into this beautiful packaging, and I know I said I don't want to keep things based on that, but this is something that I wouldn't even mind having on display. And I have 3 of them, but I don't see myself wearing the palettes at all. You see we have a glitter here. It's color stories kind of all over the place. And then these are like, they're almost like creamy. This one, the checkerboard, is like a putty. And once you swatch it and kind of mess up those embossings, like that checkerboard was really awesome. Honestly, I lost the desire to really wear the palette. This color story is really all over the place. And what I was actually wondering, would I be able to pop out this inner piece and then just keep the outside and use it for something? I'm not really sure. I'm gonna put this in the maybe, but I'm telling you I don't want this palette anymore for the shades. I want it for this luxurious packaging, and I love Alice in Wonderland. It's one of my favorite stories. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go ahead and count up what we're doing. And if there's any of these that you're like, Kara, no, keep that, let me know. Because I don't want to be hasty and then I am regretting that I got rid of things. But I don't really think I'm going to feel like that. I'm actually feeling so much lighter, and I love how I'm having this conversation with you all about my thinking. And 13, so we are now up to 63 palettes being decluttered, and I am very excited to say that. That's gonna be it. I'm gonna put these with the others, see what I need to trash. Some of them I need to trash, they're just old. The rest of them have a lot of life left in them where I can donate them. So I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with the palettes, but I think the key is to figure it out sooner than later, because that's how I ended up taking palettes out of my declutter box. That was good for some of the palettes, but some of them I'm decluttering them now a second time. So it's just time to let it go, and that's gonna be it. Don't forget to let me know what I should do about the Alice in Wonderland palette, for sure. Thank you so much for taking out some of your time and hanging out with me for another one today. I hope this was therapy for you. It always is for me. And until I see you again, make sure you're being gentle with yourself, talk to yourself nice, stay safe, and you know I will see y'all in the next one. Bye. Go on, block your